Hey everybody, Craig Hester here with R2AWatches.com. Welcome on into the show and thank you for joining us. If you are watching this on YouTube, be sure and hit like and subscribe. If you are watching this on Facebook, it's a good idea for you to join the Vostok Europe Timepieces group. Now don't be fooled by the name. Yes, we talk about Vostok Europe there, but we also talk about the other brands that are available at R2AWatches.com, including Sturmanskie, which we're talking about today with the Gagarin Sport Collection. It is a private group, a closed group on Facebook. It is the place to be if you want to know more about the watches at R2AWatches.com and have the camaraderie of other people who love our watches as well. In fact, we do a live show on there every week, 5 o'clock on Friday, and we present private information. Private's the wrong word, but we present information to that group that we don't necessarily put in our regular videos to the public. We offer the best deals there first and so forth and so on. So anyway, you should definitely join. Today we are talking about the Sturmanskie Gagarin Sport Collection, in particular the black PVD with the black dial execution. Now, what's special about this watch? First of all, Sturmanskie, first watch in space on the wrist of Yuri Gagarin. If you're not familiar with that history, it's a rich and interesting history of this brand. There are other videos that we have available that you can get more about the detailed information of the history of the brand. But today what we're talking about is the Gagarin Sport Collection. And I want to be clear, even though Sturmanskie was the first watch in space on the wrist of Yuri Gagarin, I've probably said that about, I don't know, 5,000 times in my life. This particular model is not intended to be a direct commemorative edition of that watch. The Gagarin watch was a much smaller watch. Even the commemorative editions today, which have been made larger than the original Gagarin watch, they're not very big watches. So for those of you who are into big watches, for everyone who really wants to have something from the Gagarin collection, or maybe you already own the commemorative edition, the Sport Collection was created to give you something a little more fashion forward, a bigger watch. This is a 45 millimeter, and something that will give you a little more interest on the wrist. I love the commemorative edition. I think everybody who is a fan of Russian watches should own one. But if you want something different and you want to stay with Sturmanskie and the true Russian watches, this is a fantastic choice. Now, there are three real key elements about this watch that make it a watch you absolutely want to have in your collection. First of all, the movement in this watch is the 24-32-31 jewel movement from Vostok. Now, first of all, Vostok is a different company than Sturmanskie. It's also a different company than Vostok Europe, and that's a whole other conversation. But Vostok is the oldest and largest continuously operating Russian watch manufacturer. They are still active today. They make watches and they make movements. The movement in this one is the dual time with the 24-hour indicator, 24-32 movement being used in this particular model. The watches, all Sturmanskie watches, are hand-assembled in Moscow, Russia. Every single letter on this watch is Cyrillic. So you really can't get much more Russian than this watch. If you like Russian watches, if you like the mystique of what, something different, the mystique of something coming from, from the land of Russia, with a rich, interesting history that Sturmanskie has because of what they've done in the space program. They're still used. The Sturmanskie mark is still used in the Russian space program by cosmonauts. So if you want something truly Russian, this is about as Russian as it gets. I mean, you just can't really get much more Russian than this. Let's just see how many times I can say Russian. Maybe I can come up with a reason to talk about Russian dressing or something. Anyway, I said three. I don't remember where I was. Doesn't matter. I'm going to keep going. Number two, let's just say, is the fact that this has some really, really interesting complications. The first one, and what is probably the most standout feature of this watch, is the globe in the center. Now, this has a screw-down crown. It's a 10 ATM watch, so it has a screw-down crown. Not that you have to have a screw-down crown to be 10 ATM, but that does help with keeping the watch more watertight. If you watch as I move the hands around, you can see that the globe is circling around with the 24-hour dial. Now, a 24-hour dial here, you can see the fourth hand. 1, 2, 3 is the standard, so this would be the fourth hand. You can see the fourth hand is pointing to the 24-hour scale, whereas the main timekeeping function on this watch is in your standard 12-12 configuration. The globe moves around. The whole idea behind this globe being put in the center as this disc is to commemorate Gagarin's orbits around the Earth. And one of the things I really like about this, a lot of watches, when they have a globe image in the watch, you see one or other hemisphere, you see one side of the Earth or the other side of the Earth. They don't show everything. I like that they did this from the North Pole perspective, so you're really seeing most of the entire landmass on the planet as it moves around in the center of the watch. I think that's the really standout feature of this watch. It makes it something different. It makes it something interesting. This is one that's going to get attention on the wrist because of that. Now, while I'm here, because I just noticed as it did this, I want to show you something interesting and different about the Vostok movements. And that is the fact that there is no position to set the date. There is no crown position to set the date. The date changes. You saw it just change there to the 11th. And then you go past midnight and you toggle back a little ways. There you go. I actually heard it. I doubt you heard it. There's a little click you'll hear and the date will jog in the window. Usually you don't have to go back any further than the 8 o'clock position. Now, if you watch, when I go back past midnight, the date's going to change again. And you toggle back and forth in this fashion to set the date to the proper day. This is the manufacturer's recommended way to change the date. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to admonish you, please, when you get one of these watches, do not do what you saw me do in the beginning, which is go all the way around 24 hours, 24 hours, 24 hours, 24 hours to set the date. Because what you've just done is you've just put 24 hours of wear basically on the movement every time you're trying to change the date. I know you hear from a lot of places you should never go counterclockwise with a mechanical watch, but in this case it is the manufacturer's recommended way to change the date. All right. So let's get back to the watch itself. Let me tell you some of the other specs. 45 millimeters, as I mentioned earlier. It's about 13 millimeters thick. As a mineral crystal, it's 10 ATM. It is a 21 millimeter strap with the heavy duty padded leather strap with the matching contrast stitching. So those are the basic overview specs, but here's the other really cool aspect of this watch, which is one of those three things I can't remember. I feel like Rick Perry with which wing was he going to get rid of in the anyway, if you don't know that, just ignore me. So anyway, the other feature of this watch that's really cool is it has an internal rotating bezel. First of all, I am a huge fan. I am a nut for internal rotating bezels. It's amazing we haven't built one for Pramsius yet that has an internal rotating bezel because I really do love them. Second of all, what is really cool about this one, it is for a secondary time zone. You set the position so that when you're looking at the time, you have a secondary time zone by using the internal rotating bezel. But what's really cool about the way that Sturmanskie did this one is that once you get the ring, you get the bezel where you want it to be, it actually has a screw down crown. And then that way you are certain that you've fixed the secondary time zone where you want it to be and it's not going to move. So a lot of times watches that have secondary time zones, that crown is not a screw down crown and it can still move freely. You can put your hand in your pocket, you can you bump it against something and it could move, and you look down to see what time it is in the other time zone you're interested in having, particularly when you're traveling, and you see that it's moved, and that's frustrating. That doesn't happen with this watch because once you put it in the proper position, it's not going to move. So this is the Gagarin Sport Collection. If you've never gotten a Sturmanskie, this is a really good watch to start with because, again, it is so Russian. It has the Russian movement. It has the Cyrillic. It is hand-assembled in Moscow. It's a great first watch to get into Sturmanskie. Now, I do usually recommend to people, if you haven't gotten the true Gagarin commemorative editions, that is definitely one you want. But, this is a way to get something that you might find a little more wearable for every day, something that that's going to be a little more interesting on the wrist in terms of people when they notice it. If you get into Sturmanskie, you definitely have to have the Gagarin commemorative. But this is just a really great watch to start a collection of Sturmanskie. It comes with the standard Sturmanskie leather box. And again, Russian movement, assembled in Moscow, all Cyrillic, center disc of the globe from the North Pole position moving on a 24-hour scale, dual time with a screw down crown on an internal rotating bezel. It just doesn't get much cooler than this. This is just a really, really interesting timepiece with some great color work on it and something that you're going to own for years. By the way, it is a mechanical movement. I don't like to assume that everybody watching our shows knows everything about watches, but that does mean that it is a jeweled movement. Those are synthetic ruby jewels that are at the friction points, and that it has gears and it has a mainspring, it has a balance wheel, it has all the things that go into a mechanical movement. This is also an automatic mechanical, which means it has a rotor which will wind the watch as you wear it. So if you wear the watch every day, you shouldn't ever have to wind it. And obviously it won't need a battery, because mechanical watches don't ever need batteries because they don't run on batteries. You're not going to get the level of accuracy that you get from a quartz watch. Okay, you do need to understand that if you haven't owned a mechanical watch before, but you get the craftsmanship. You get the fact that it can be repaired. I mean, mechanical watches are one of the few things left in the world that you can actually repair. Usually these days we just remove and replace. So this is, again, a timepiece with a rich, wonderful history of about the space program tied to Yuri Gagarin. In fact, Sturmanskie is the only watch company in the world that has the rights to actually use Gagarin's image in association with their watch production. So definitely want to pick this up. Hope I've given you all the key elements about it, and for you to think about owning this watch and just learning a little bit more about Sturmanskie if you didn't know it before. So, hey, until next time, I'm Craig Hester with R2AWatches.com, and keep watching.